Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's budget workshop. What do we have today, Roy? I don't think we have too much stuff today, do we?
No, sir. We're kind of following up on some things that have come up through the budget hearings. Other than we are going to have the McAllen Heritage Center have a short presentation on a new request that they want us to consider. They've discussed this with MISD and probably others, and so I thought this was a good opportunity for you to hear Elva on the project that they're working on. So the first thing on the agenda is UTRGV. That came up last week on our agreement with UTRGV. Do they have a copy of the agreement? So we're going to give you a copy of that agreement, and it basically outlines that the city of McAllen back in 2014 committed to funding the School of Medicine of UTRGV to the tune of up to $2 million. That's always been the issue of what that means, right? And so we actually went back and, because you also asked us, how much have we paid? And so the first year, which was fiscal year 2015, we actually did make a payment of $2 million.
Right.
The following year, things got a little rough, I think, between UTRGV and McAllen, and there was some back and forth, and as far as we can tell, we're pretty confident that there was no payment the next fiscal year.
Right.
Following that, every year since then, from 17 until the current year, we have made $1 million payment to UTRGV School of Medicine. And so what the agreement said was up to $2 million for 10 years. And it's in the agreement. It's from 2014 to 2023, which would be next fiscal year. However, you know, the thought, of course, was that it would be $2 million, right?
Right.
By many on the UTRGV side, certainly. So for a total of 20. We probably will not get there, but right now, with what you approved for this fiscal year, and we had that presentation last meeting, we're at $8 million total contribution to the School of Medicine.
Okay. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it.
What were the issues? Just how much, what we're doing?
Right. I think that back in 2014, 15, 16, the City Commission, I don't think, the discussion was, it is off balance compared to what everyone else is doing. We're double the second best, and so I think that there was some pushback at the commission level.
I think that if it's a legitimate public purpose, which it is, I mean, we do whatever we need to do. We have, I'll give you an example, the benefits we get. Soho, why are they coming here? Because of the people that, I guess, UTRGV, STC, whoever it is, are educating. We have a tech company that's coming because of them. So keep on doing what we got to do.
Yeah, and I think what's happened here, certainly the last 4 or 5 years, is that we've had them come and present what the purpose of the funds are going to be. And I don't think that we've ever said it's only going to be $1 million. So, I mean, if they bring a program that looks like it should be less, you're going to consider it. Or if it's going to be more, you're going to consider it. So, every year since about 2017, we've actually had a specific request for the money. It isn't just a check that the City Commission authorizes. Any questions on that?
So was this just a kind of a recap of the MOU and the fact that we're continuing, but theoretically or technically the term expires at the next fiscal year, and so really we only deal with one fiscal year at a time, right? So
Right.
Really just a kind of FYI about the MOU.
Well, it was requested at a meeting,
okay.
at a budget meeting.
Got it. Okay.
The MOU was requested and the amount of payout was also requested. So we wanted to address it here at the budget meeting.
And this might not be a question for you, but do you know that Edinburgh, Mission, and FAR have all maintained their consistent obligation as well?
I don't know the answer to that, but we can get the answer to
I
that.
think the answer is no.
No?
Okay. Yeah, it'd be good to see, just for informational purposes, the performances of, let's say, call it the 4 cities within the MOU in what each one has paid each year.
Great.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, Edinburgh's commitment at the time was $1 million.
Yes.
Mission was 250,000, City of FAR was 500,000, and McAllen, like I
And then
said,
just
up to
Up
2 million,
Yeah, and then just the county handle it too.
and the county. Okay, any questions on that?
We're good. Thank you again, Roy.
Thank you.
Is it McAllen? There's,
Yes, sir. So we've got Elba Cerda, she's the director at the Heritage Center. And I'm gonna let her have a presentation. Elba has presented something like this or something similar to MISD. She had visited with me a couple of months ago, and I told her this was probably the best venue for her to present to the city commission during budget. So, Elba?
Thank you for having me. And we also had some hard copies, because I had some glitches with trying to get the PowerPoint, but I think, Roy, we have it. So with that, I'm Elba Cerda, I'm the director of the museum. We've been at the downtown location, which is our former post office, as many of you know, since 2008. The museum was chartered in 2006. And safe to say that we're doing very, very well. So well that we have run out of space. And let me just see how this works. So are you going to move it for me, or am I going to do it?
There you go. You should be able to do it.
A lot of it, I'm going to run through it because it's really background, and I think everyone here has a background. So, and I don't know if this is going to work. This is basically a video that is going to show you a Google Earth of where our position is. And again, most of you do know that. So, okay, we skipped it?
Yeah, sorry about that.
And that's a building in a rendering as it looks, as it is today. If we did anything, I guess it's not gonna work. If we did anything, and everything we do, and you will see some renderings here as I continue, will be architecturally exactly as it is, except it will be new, okay? So, it's not going, so I guess we may not have internet, but that's okay. Everybody knows where we're located downtown, pretty much, right? So,
Yeah, it seems to be a screenshot, not a video.
okay, so that's what I was saying. So we'll just go forward.
Yes.
We're, as you know, we're a nonprofit, we're a tax exempt corporation, basically set up to tell the story of McAllen's history. We started off in 2004 as a goal when we celebrated the 1904 100-year centennial of the city's founding, which is when the first train depot was built. Many people celebrate that because really that's how the city began. That was how we really got started, and commerce, and people started moving here. We developed a base collection, and for about 2 years, or a year and a half, we had to store that. MEDC was our friend. An anonymous donor donated a warehouse, and there is where we kept our base collection and many of our gondolas and glass cases and the things that we were acquiring. I'm a founding, I'm now the director, but I'm a founding member of that museum, as is Spud Brown, as is Dr. Nedra Knurk. We have a very good staff, and we've continued to grow our staff. Help. Move it up. And you can move that up too. I think everyone here knows our board. President of our board is John Kreidler. We are presently would say we're running about 9,000 to 10,000 people. Obviously, we had COVID interrupt our services, interrupted a lot of the things that we basically offer to the community. We're back on track. Hopefully, we're going to be back being able to do more things as we have in the past. And I don't know what it says back there. The presentations, the tours, all of those are getting ready to get going. What our problem is that we're just simply out of room. We have many items in storage, and not really in the best storage facility type, that we really need to have more storage, more exhibit areas, and this is an aerial of our position in the downtown area. I believe we're the jewel of downtown because we are in a state and landmark facility. And really kudos to the city of McAllen for putting funds into keeping that building beautiful, safe, and just keeping it up. And of course, I like to take credit that we are always on the lookout for the building and the interior. And we secured a grant early in our history of about $100,000. The earmark for that money was to take care of the building, and we have used those funds very carefully over the 15 years we've been housed in the building. That is a corner shot of the facility. It's a beautiful facility. We did a major renovation in 2019. We had some outdated restrooms, and so what we did is that converted into a multi-purpose room that can be utilized as a boardroom, and it's also our train exhibit room. And if we need to, we can remove that board table that's in there and put more exhibits in there. But we do offer that room to small community nonprofits that may not have space to have their meetings. And we have had Rotarians, we've had leadership, we have had many groups come through there, and we welcome them. So I have a good relationship with Boltinghouse Simpson Gates Architects, and we are looking at two concepts. We're looking at a 2-level building, or the more preferable is a 3-level building, which would be 2,000 square feet approximately per level. That is the current site placement of the existing building, the little park, 21 parking spaces, and in the back corner is where we're looking to put this new building. We're looking to move presentation area, gallery space, staff workspace, more collection area, possibility of a small kitchen for any functions that we have, and really just allows for more exhibits, because even the chronological history of the city that we have on a decade-by-decade basis, we don't have any more room, and we have some decades that we need to include. And so we're working on that, but we're going to need more room. So if you look at this is basically what the renderings are of the finish out. And as you see it, it looks pretty much exactly like what you see, what we have there now. What you see there is the building in front. This is the corner, the back corner. We would keep a green area there, and add the facility there with a breezeway connecting to the existing. There's a side view there. It's still beautiful. It does not interrupt the historical aspects of the building. So, you know, this presentation was developed back in June of 2021. Construction costs were much, much higher. We're looking at that nice downward curve right now. So those numbers, for some reason, they're still probably the same because they're not exact numbers, okay? So we are preferably looking at a 3-story facility. We have to, obviously the best thing for me to do is be able to secure funding. I have to go to the Historical Commission of Texas to make sure they're okay with it, whether we go on a 2-story or in a 3-story building. And I don't really seem to, we have a good relationship with them. I've somewhat mentioned it to them, and they're waiting for us to get back to them on what we're looking to do. The cost of furniture, fixtures, and equipment is not included. That would be our responsibility. We would fundraise for that and anything else that we're able to do. We are actually off and running on a capital campaign to fundraise to get those funds going. So, and of course, we are looking to still continue conversations with the MISD, because the MISD wanted us to do a historical about the school district, which we really want to do, okay? Just don't have the room, okay? So I think there's still some possibilities. I don't think it's going to be a large, significant amount, but it should be a good number that we get from them. And I would definitely report back to you as we go forward with this. So down at the bottom, based on my meetings with Danny and Boltinghouse, we're looking at, once we get everything done that we need to do, getting the Historic Commission and getting certificate of appropriateness done, we have to go before the city board as well. You know, hopefully, once we get to that point, then to be shovel ready within 8 to 9 months is most likely what we would be looking at. Let me see what it says after that. And of course, that would include making sure that we have enough parking spaces, landscaping, and all of those things are addressed as they should be. And finally is a letter from Danny, because, you know, in our conversation, I kind of asked him, how are we looking? And we were talking about the construction numbers, and they're kind of in line with what we were looking at before. I think we maybe would have been, we're maybe going a little under in our initial numbers. So we're looking to build a beautiful building. It would be something that could be used for many different purposes, even if one day we were not there, and I hope that's not the case. But it is, and we would do everything we could to keep it historical in nature, and the architecture would be the same as what is there now. So it's obvious that we have, you know, there may be some tweaking along the way, and we really are hoping to get a 3-story. So at this time, we're asking for funding. We would like to go forward with it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. I think this covers a general overview of the project. Thank you.
Alba, how many visitors do you get there in a year?
We're running about 10,000 right now,
10,000 a year?
and we're hoping for more. You know, a lot of times people suggested that, you know, being downtown was a deterrent. I really don't agree with that, and I believe that's where we need to be, because we need to continue beautifying downtown, adding positive vibes to the downtown area. We're really lucky to have a beautiful and thriving downtown area, and us being there, I think, does nothing but enhance it. So we do have that parking in the back as well. So.
How do we promote it, and how do people, you know of going to the museum
Well,
downtown?
Okay, that's
How
been
can we get better, or how are we doing?
Thank you for asking, Tony. I mean, that's been a big problem for us. Any small startup organization has a very small budget like ours. We don't have money for TV ads. We don't have money for a lot of print. And so we're doing a real hard work in our social media platforms and more print ads. We now incorporated the monitor, because the monitor was really too expensive for us. And so we really are seeing an increase with what we're doing the monitor. So that's why also we've been asking for additional funding through the general fund to use for more advertising and also more staff, because we want to open more hours. So promotion is a big problem for us, Tony. We do need to help with that. We don't get enough.
And I know you.
Oh, Explore McAllen, Rebecca and her team,
Yeah.
I gotta give her some credit. She's been very helpful with us recently. So.
I know there's some rotating exhibits, and then there's, you know, other things that we could.
One of the things that we do is, you know, the history of McAllen is fascinating, but you want to keep it fresh. So we have formed partnerships with Humanities Texas, UTRGV CHAPS program, of course the Valley Land Fund, photography, and others. And so we do, Most has done some work with us, and so we're doing rotating exhibits to the tune of 3 to 4 a year, depending on, you know, the availability. And that is going very well. We're adding presentations. This fall, we're going to do we produced a beautiful video, because that's one of our projects, for our video of the war history of Rick Guerra's father in World War II. And it is a beautiful production, so we're going to do a video preview and a reception. So we have a lot of things lining up, presentations, and we just finished a series of presidential profiles. There was 4. We had very good attendance at those. We promoted them heavily. And the last one we had last Saturday, people were saying, what's next? What do y'all have next? So we are working on many, many things that are coming down the pipeline that we want to keep. We consider it a service for the city of McAllen, promoting the city and telling people who we are. And so I appreciate you asking. Promotion is a big problem for us.
Assuming with the new facility, have you estimated what your additional operating cost per year would be? Because I'm sure it's utilities, staff, maintenance.
I got to talk to Roy about that. I mean, we need to figure that out. We need to figure that out, because obviously, I mean, you know, you would have those numbers on the existing 8,000 square foot facility, and now we're looking to add 4,000 to 6,000 square feet. You know, obviously, the new facility would be much more energy efficient than what we have right now. Okay,
Yeah,
so I think we would see a lot of improvement on that. So, no, I haven't done that yet, Sebi, but certainly that's something we would do.
How much additional square footage is freed up from the current building by adding this?
It was a little under 800.
That's it? You're just adding 800 square feet?
Oh, no, I thought you meant on what we already did. No, we're looking at 2,000 per level, so.
No, I'm not talking about the new facility, because you're gonna move items, storage, whatever, from the current building into the new, I'm gonna call it an annex, I suppose.
It is an
An
annex.
annex, all right. So once you move whatever items you're planning to move, furniture items, curios, whatever, into the annex, how much space are you freeing up for more exhibits?
We probably will not have space for more exhibits. What we're doing is we're gonna create a library, because
Oh.
that's something that the public is always looking for, and I don't have one right now because I don't have room. And recently, the Monitor met with us, and they are gonna donate their archives to the museum, including the database, the computer. So now anybody can come in and they'll be able to look for anything from the inception of the Monitor. So we will house that there, and we want to create a library, because right now we're using that space to store collection items, when it can be a research library for the community. And so we're going to convert those spaces to use them for things like that.
And how much square footage is that?
We're looking at about, the small office that we have available right now would be it's probably maybe 10 by 12. And then I need to add, so it would be that, and then moving a collection closet, which really, we need more collection closets, so it's not like I'm moving them out, right? So it's
Okay.
really more additional, but I'm adding a 6,000 square feet. So the only thing I'm doing is repurposing whatever I'm gonna move, like that particular office I'm talking about is
Right.
currently housing collection items that would be moving out, and it's probably about 10 by 12
Okay, you're gonna repurpose that for something else?
for a research library.
Okay. And then the remaining area will be for the archives from the Monitor?
Well, we probably put that in that area too.
The 10 by 12?
Because that's gonna be it's a computer.
Oh, it's just a computer. Okay. So what about the rest of the space?
The rest of the space, you mean the new space?
No, the space that you're gonna move stuff
Well,
out.
the most likely that what's gonna happen is, if you've been there, we have a central area that is a presentation room.
Right.
So that room will be moving into the new building, and most likely what we're gonna do is that's gonna be the continuation of our decade by decade history.
Got it. Thank
And
you.
MISD. We really don't have enough school history, and we really do need to do that.
Are we looking at something for the coming fiscal year, or is it the year after that? What's the timeline on this project? If it was funded, I mean.
I don't know what the center's timeline would be.
Yeah, I guess, what's the timeline is, if the funding was approved, or there was sufficient funds for that?
For this cycle, you mean? We have a lot of work to do, obviously, so, I mean, I have to understand how that would work. If we got approval and we weren't ready to start utilizing the funds, would we roll over, or what would happen? Because, with any big project, there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done, especially when we're talking about a landmark facility that I need to work with the state on, So the possibility that we could utilize it within the next fiscal year I believe it's probable. But then also probable would be that we would roll over a portion of that, or a big portion of that, when we get to the construction phase.
I saw the number 1.2 million. That's just the construction cost?
Yes, sir.
And the design would be a certain percentage of that?
Yes.
1.2 million estimated a year ago?
For the what?
No.
1.2 million estimated about 12 months ago?
No, he updated that in that last letter that was attached to your packet. Again, keep in mind that these are rough numbers, but I think they're accurate numbers. So I'll mention too that in the back, because this is city property, we have a beautiful grassy area, which is where this building will be situated. And there's a cluster of palm trees. I don't know if anybody here, it's in there in the presentation. It's a beautiful cluster of palm trees, and we light them up. The sad part is nobody really sees them. They're off on the side, they're on Chicago. And so the MISD came and took a tour, and they said, can we have those? I said, you need it as a city.
For 1.2 million, they can have it.
They want to, well, we're trying to go that route, Sebi, but I'll tell you about that later. But that is something that we definitely want to preserve.
All right.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but by adding this additional annex building, will there be a need to acquire more parking spaces?
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's something that we would need to study through our engineering department. Right now, there's 21 spaces. I'm not sure how we would consider the spaces available on Main Street, you know? And then there is a small parking lot that's right behind the alley there, that I'm not sure if it's, who owns it. I've tried to ask who owns it. It's got meters. But that might be something that we could consider. I'm not sure. Again, that would be something we would work with
Yeah.
engineering on as far as, I get the impression that I talked to someone and they said we were okay with the parking, but obviously that would have to be verified in the process.
And in terms of your operating budgets, do you anticipate how many more additional employees for operations?
Right now, I'm just looking at one.
Just one.
The way that we're doing it to be multifunctional would be to add 2 workspaces for our marketing person and possibly an additional assistant curator. So,
And their offices would be in the annex, right?
yes, sir.
How much would it cost to complete the plans so that the project is ready to be bid out? Like, how much does that cost?
I would need to visit with the architect.
Like maybe 10% or something like
Probably.
that, maybe $100,000?
Probably.
Okay.
Tony?
Maybe it would be a phased approach to where we would be looking at that part of it, you know, and and then build from there. I don't know.
Well, I don't know how feasible that would be. I mean, since it's a
Design plan.
3-story, I mean, it could be engineered and built to accommodate that 3rd level. It would need to be done from the get-go.
Are you saying that you want to see the total architectural,
That's right.
not only the design, but the act, you know, to take off to be able to bid it? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
yeah, I think what I'm saying
But
is,
at that time, you know, it's a large part of their percentage, and if you have an approximate $1.2 million in construction, probably 6 to 8% of $1.2 million would get you,
Yeah.
a.
yeah.
I was thinking it
Something
would
to
be
bid
running-
out.
It would be running 7 to 10%, so, yeah, that's about right.
Well, so that we knew a little, well, with today's construction costs, what the total project's gonna look
Well,
like.
and I think when they
Versus
did
last
that,
year's.
what I was trying to read into it is that I guess it was middle of last year, right? So construction costs are pretty high already there. And with that letter, he's saying that the costs are relatively
I think it's a
accurate.
conservative
Yeah.
estimate, you know,
I
so.
mean, I would still
175.
put a little more percentage into it, but
I mean,
They were already high.
basically, we'd be looking at, we're looking at 1.2 if we're able to build a 3-level building.
yeah, that's a 3 level.
Obviously, it all hinges on whether Historic Commission says it's a go for 3 levels, because the 2-level will not do a lot to the elevation and facade of the building. If you go 3, it's gonna jut out a little more, even though we're keeping it architecturally the same, that would be the concern. So really, that would be based on that. Obviously, we do a 2-level, it's gonna knock down that cost quite a bit. So there's still some work, homework that we have to do on this.
So I have two last questions.
1.2 would be
That's-
for the 3.
Sounds good.
estimated.
Do you anticipate proposing a fundraising campaign for this project?
Yes, you know, obviously, we have to get the building built, and then we need to put everything in there we need it to function, you know, furniture, fixtures, computers, whatever we're gonna need. That's us, that is on
Right.
us. Any excess funds, we'll put them in like we always have. We've always had a grant and a special reserve fund that we use for the building. Mainly the existing building, because it's a special building and has a lot of needs, you know, so we have a running total of the funds that we put into the building. We want to continue to do that because that 1934 building needs a lot of TLC. So, and we want to continue doing that.
And-
So any excess funds we would get, aside from what we need, we'll put in our reserve account, continue using them for the building.
Would you propose to have the project completely funded before you cut to shovel-ready? Or you would go in phases?
I mean, I think that if we could get a commitment for whatever the full amount would be, I mean, I think that's the best way to do it. If
I mean,
we get a
historically, I think
commitment-
at least from the city side, we don't do projects until they're funded or the funding has been secured at some point before you proceed, right? Work?
Right, so, you know, the question is, are you gonna fund the total amount? We had actually hoped that MISD would partner here
Right.
and do one of the levels, the 3rd level. And originally, I'm not gonna speak for all of our board, but my understanding was originally there was interest by MISD, and that has dwindled somewhat. So, it depends on what, you know, what amount you're looking to fund. But one of the things that I heard right now, which is probably the best thing to do, if you're interested in doing this project, is to fund the design.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it gives her time to go to the Historical Society. You know, it's gonna take at least 6 months to design, and that's best case scenario.
Yep.
You know, get it approved, get her funding going, and then we have an idea of what we're looking at.
Right.
But, you know, so if the answer is, you're interested, maybe we fund the design.
I don't want to commit you to certain numbers, but if, let's say, we're looking at design right now, the city would fund that part, right?
Right.
And are we looking at something beyond the design where the city's going to put in?
Right, well, the request is for construction money.
Got it.
And so my point is, we're not ready for that right
Right.
now, and probably won't be ready for some time. So maybe that's the way we do it. We take our time, give her time to fundraise,
Right.
maybe go back to MISD and see what happens.
Well,
We're
perhaps,
trying to get the lines of communication open, at the beginning, the presentation to them was that we would take one floor and would dedicate it to the MISD, because they said, we have a lot of things scattered, we want a history of MISD there, that we can point to. And it was really going in a very good trajectory with MISD, but then there's been some changes in how they're dealing with their funds and whatever. And so it came back that they were not gonna be able to assist us. But recently I've continued talking to them, and there is a possibility, I just don't know how much, So, the fact of the matter is that for us to continue to grow, expand, and serve the city and our citizens and our region, we really need more space. So we can definitely go towards a design, towards getting approval from Historic Commission, who I've got to say, they've been very accommodating to us. They're very pleased with the building. They were very happy with the mural that we did. They gave us permission to do that. All of that is beautification and care. We're doing nothing but enhancing the downtown footprint. So I would like to move forward with the understanding that once we get those things addressed and we're able to get it done, that we would be able to secure the funding, which one way or the other. We'll continue working on getting money, okay? But the major portion, I need to know that I'm gonna have support.
I feel more, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I feel, just for me, all right, I'm not speaking for obviously any member, I feel more comfortable if there was a capital campaign funding that was already ongoing for this project, because as much as I would like to see the city of McAllen fund this is a community project. This is one where the citizens, the corporate citizens in our community need to jump into the game and get involved, whether it be $500, $1,000, $5,000, $50,000, whatever the amount. I think it's only fair that the city does shoulder some of the responsibility in terms of capital campaign. But if this city wants to preserve and remember and keep forever the history of our city, then you have to get our citizens involved. At least that's my perspective.
We could work on that, and I'm sure that we can put a committee together on that. At the end of the day, it's your facility. It belongs to the city.
Sure.
And so we will do what we can. We've done quite an enormous amount of work where we're at to put that museum in place, and the number of exhibits that we have, it's beautiful, it's well received, and so that, I can pledge to you that we'll do the best we can, okay? At the end of the day, this is your facility, and we're using it in the highest and best use possible. So, I would expect a little bit of,
Sure.
it's more of a give and take, so you put that on me. I can take some responsibility,
Sure.
absolutely, but I can't sit here and tell you we're gonna raise.
Right. No, and I'm not expecting to, because
it's
the current arrangement is through a lease, right? With what we have with the building? And so would that continue, obviously, with the annex?
Sure, I would think so. I mean,
Right.
it's our facility.
It's our facility?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
I think that the figure is between $90,000 and $100,000 to get the full set of plans and whatever so that we could have a real good number of what it would cost to construct it. Yep. And I think that's a city function, I would think, that we would do that. To allow you to say, let's go out there to the community and us definitely participate and one way or another, ISD will participate in some way or another. And then we'll get to that $1.2 million, $1.3 million, $1.4 million figure. I think it's extremely
So
necessary.
800,000.
It's beautiful. Very interesting, very interesting, so.
No, and for full disclosure, when I first proposed that Elva come here, we talked about the city funding up to half of it, if the commission was acceptable.
I feel it'll get there.
Just so you know,
And again, that was when we were really looking at MISD coming in as a
Right.
partner.
Oh, I see.
yeah, but so that we're on the same page, and it's what I told you.
But I know initially, it will take 6 months to get it to a level that we'll be able to go out
Public.
publicly. This is what we're doing, community, boom. Yeah,
I think design for right now is good.
yeah.
Yeah, and maybe also give her time and her board to bring us a business plan.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? Thank you, Elva.
La Zavala rules, man.
Zavala, Harlingen or Donde?
Bristol City. Where's that?
Yeah.
Is that near Dillon? Just messing with you, bro.
Zavala, they were talking about Zavala, I guess they moved through the same.
Really?
Tony and
Zavala Elementary.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, I emailed you this a couple of weeks ago after a meeting that staff and I had, specifically Rebecca and I had with Ernest, his name is here, Ernest Espinosa. And so I knew very little about the Children's Bereavement Center here in the Valley until I met with him. I had heard of it, but he really described the work that they do in the Valley. Even though it's located in Harlingen and then a smaller one in Edinburgh, they do a tremendous job for families that have had deaths in their families, especially children. Although they do take young adults, they focus on children, some 600 of them. And so they're looking to move to McAllen. And, we felt that this was something that we should consider on a one-time basis to help them move in. They're negotiating right now with First Presbyterian Church. And they provided us a budget of what they think they need to do to get that building where they need it. It's $89,000. And so I wanted to bring this to you. I really felt that it's an opportunity to help a nonprofit that does a great job. And for disclosure, they would be closing the Edinburgh office. That's not why I think we need to do it. They feel that they've got a lot more density here in McAllen and they need more space. And so this is not to take away anything from our neighboring city, but I think it would be a great advantage for us to have this here in McAllen. They do have children and families drive from Hidalgo County to Harlingen, and this would facilitate that happening. So
What's the ask of this, Roy?
about half of that. And so it's $89,000, and we're looking at $40,000 to $45,000 in capital.
sounds good. Yeah, it'd be nice to have them in McAllen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They've got a good board.
Yes,
Good,
they have.
outstanding board. I like the idea.
Okay, we will add it to the budget before we complete it. The other entity that we had asked to be here today was STC. I told you that they'd be here today. They were unable to do it. So I'm going to add them to Wednesday's meeting to present on their nursing program that they're looking to do. And we'll probably have their dean, their vice president, and possibly the president here. So they're not going to be here. The next thing is the Development Corp. We just passed out the Development Corp budget. We've actually gone through most of it. We went through all of the capital projects. So what we didn't do is everything outside of that. One of the meetings that we had last week, we did all of the capital that included this. So if you'd like, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly and certainly answer any questions that you might have. We're already setting up a meeting of the Development Corporation probably in 2 to 3 weeks, because we have to go back and fix the budget, because we had left a couple of things out. Remember, we left the press box out, and then you actually, the city commission added a couple of things last week, specifically the golf course and some small stuff like that. So we're gonna go back to the Development Corp, because they've got to approve it before October the 1st. Okay? So again, just an overview, we're looking at a fund balance estimated at $21 million, starting October the 1st. Sales tax revenue of over 20 million. Because a lot of the projects are being rolled over, we're looking at expenditures in the amount of about 30,422,000, giving you an estimated fund balance with everything in here of about 13.2. And so, again, we've gone through the capital, so I'll go through this real quick and you can ask me questions if you'd like. So on page 2, line number 7, you've got the after-school learning centers that we work with MISD. You've got STC, that's a program that they actually submitted, you've already approved that. Vida, El Milagro, on the business district, we went through those. You also looked at involuntary demolitions. We're going to look at increasing it. That's on number 20. Potential investments on line 28 is, again, a plug number. There's nothing, we're not attributing to any project, but if they come up and we've got to fund it quickly, we've got it. Obviously, it's a project that you would have to approve. Technology Park is a project we continue to work on getting fiber over to the bridge and to the technology park. On the next page, we've got a few projects that we're still doing. The Development Corp that you reviewed last week, most of them are rollovers. On recreation, again, they're recurring expenses, pretty small. Christmas in the Park. You approved the golf course, and then we're going to add a couple of them that you did approve. We talked about the library, Palmview and Lark. Obviously, we'll spend what we need. Hopefully, the 110 is more than we need. Morris Park improvement, you talked about. McAllen, we talked about increasing that number on line item 70 to probably 150. And my understanding is at the chamber board meeting this past Tuesday, their new CEO is recommending that the city take over McAllen. So that's a discussion that we need to have. We're obviously very, very involved already. You know, we've got hundreds of employees out there working anyway, but it's just a big undertaking for the chamber. And so obviously they'll still be our partner, but it's something that we need to look at on how to handle it. We're going to look to you for funding because at least on year one, we'll look at our business plan as we put it together, but we certainly do not want the convention center to be out any funds. That's where the Development Corporation has come in, and any fee that the convention center charges, instead of them having to, you know, provide the cash, the Development Corporation is doing that.
Right.
And we'll come back to you during the year, and it's going to be pretty quick if this moves forward. Let's see, air incentives, that just went to commission recently. Portable homes, Anzalduas. By the way, we had an MOU at the Bridge Board meeting, at the last meeting, where they approved the memorandum of understanding to pay back the Development Corporation for the $4 million design money. So that has been approved at the Bridge Board.
So they're going to fund that when?
We're going to provide a schedule. Once we start construction of the cargo, I'm going to recommend that we give them multiple years to pay that back so that they ramp up with truck traffic. And if truck traffic does as well or better than we think, then maybe we reduce that schedule. I would guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 years.
But you didn't put it in the ending balance of...
No,
Oh.
no, that's not taking that into consideration at that point. So
But we could get some money next year.
I would say probably not. Commissioner, because we're gonna be in construction.
Okay.
So I would guess that 2 fiscal years from now would probably be the first payment.
Okay.
And we promised the bridge board we'd take that schedule back to them for approval.
Okay.
Any questions on that page? The rest is transfers out, and of course, the money that we provide Metro and downtown. Transit, I'm sorry, transit and downtown, and Metro. So we just wanted to refresh your memory. We felt like we covered most of it last week, but give you an opportunity to ask any questions there. And if not, we'd like to, the last item we'd like to talk about today is on HR. We provided a plan to you several years ago on things that we thought we needed to do to improve our environment here in McAllen, to improve the turnover. We were seeing quite a bit of turnover. We do an exit interview of all employees that leave the city. Well, they have an opportunity for an exit interview. Some choose not to do it. But we actually review it. Every single exit interview goes to the city manager and the assistant city manager if it's one of his departments, and the department head. So most of the time, you know, they're exiting employees are pretty civil. Sometimes they're not. But we want to know what's going on, right? We want to know why they're leaving. And so one of the things that was still outstanding that we provided to you several years back was longevity pay.
Right.
And we did not include it in the budget because of the other things that we thought we needed to do. However, in hearing from department heads, you've heard that that is an issue. In a couple of departments specifically, you know, the department head felt that the number of years of service to that department, you know, we weren't maintaining that increase in growth and in compensation. And so we're not suggesting that we look at this for October the 1st, at least I'm not. Jeff may disagree with me. But we wanted you to hear it during budget so that you know that this is coming. And again, you know, you could still say, we don't think we need that. But it was one of the components that we brought to you, and Jeff's got a lot of information on what we're looking for you to consider and why. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor Commissioner. So with that, I want to emphasize something that Roy just mentioned. There are multiple ways to work towards keeping our employees. And if you look at the first line that we're going to put up here, you're going to see, for those of you who've been with us for a little while, back in 2018, this became an issue because we looked at the number of employees we were turning over each year, and we were passing 15%. Our goal is to be closer to 10% in terms of annual employee turnover. And so in 2018, what we did is an internal survey. The next slide will show you kind of a honeycomb pattern that this was our review internally of several different factors that are important to the employees. And we compared this with our surrounding cities, and you'll see as you look at that list, some of those were kind of in a reddish color, which were areas where we felt that we truly were behind our peers. Some of those were yellow, where we feel like we're about on par, and then we had some that were green as well, where we felt that we were either just barely excelling or doing a really good job compared to our peers. Obviously, reputation is one of those that you see on that slide in green. We know we're one of the top cities in the country, and it's hard to beat that. But some of the other areas we felt that we had some needs to address. On the next slide, you'll see a 7-year plan that was presented to the commission back in 2019. These were the goals that were laid out, and then you can see in the colored items there in year 2 and 3 the adjustments that were approved by the city commission based on the study. And in the first year, 1920, we had our 2% COLA, but we also saw that we were lagging behind other cities in terms of available vacation days for employees. The commission granted 3 additional floating holidays for the employees. Longevity pay, you'll see, is something that we discussed that we would look at. And then a salary study was approved. And then you'll see in year 2, that salary study was in progress. That took longer than we intended, primarily due to COVID and the issues that came up. But you'll also see the COLA up 0% in year 2, although we did have a one-time payment that year for employees. Also 1 additional floating holiday, and then there was an adjustment made to vacation days based on how many years employees had been with the city. We took longevity pay and said we would review that again the following year. Then in year 3, you'll see that there was a 2% COLA, and that was really added into that compensation study. When we implemented the comp study, every employee got a minimum of a 2% pay increase, and then based on how many years employees had been here, based on the review of their position compared to other positions within the profession, we saw additional adjustments up to about 3.7%. So the total cost, if you will, of implementation of that equivalated to, or was the equivalent of about a 5.7% increase in pay to the employees. And then longevity was something that we discussed, and the commission said, let's push that aside and look at that in a future year. So in the next slide,
Let me just comment.
Yep, I'm sorry, back up there.
For the benefit of the newer commissioners, so on that second row there, you see floating holidays. What we saw is that we were shy about 4 days on average in comparison to the Rio Grande Valley cities, but they had specific holidays. For instance, President's Day, MLK, Veterans Day, that the city of McAllen does not observe. But if you do that, you present it to the city commission, that actually has a higher cost to us, because then everyone is taking that that holiday, and where it really costs us is in premium pay to fire and police. Okay, and so we recommended that we not do that, we not have specific holidays, and we call them floating holidays. You can take them whenever you want during the year, and you continue to have a full workforce.
all right, so here on the next slide you can see, and this is in essence where we are right now, 2020 and 2021 range. You'll notice that some of those squares or shapes that were red before, holidays and vacation in particular, moved from red to yellow, again because it got us to par with our peers throughout the region, which was a change. You'll also notice on pay, we kept that yellow because the adjustment that was made with the comp study was to get us to market with our peers, not ahead, but just dead even with the median of our peers. So then if you look forward to the next slide, you'll see what that did for us. In 2020, we saw our turnover drop. We were back headed the right direction. Some of this was, if you'll remember, COVID. We had some employees, not just in the city of McAllen, but throughout the country, who decided 2020 was a good time to retire because they didn't want to be around other people. You also saw a lot of employees that decided they wanted to stick around because they wanted to make sure they had insurance and they weren't sure what was going to happen next. But then you can see in 2021, we started to see those numbers creep up again. In 2022, our estimates are somewhere between 14 and 16% is what we're going to see for this coming year. We attribute a lot of that not only to some of these issues, but also the great resignation that you've heard plenty about, where we've just got a lot of employees who've decided post-COVID that maybe it's time for me to do something different with my life, and that's impacting the city of McAllen, just like it is other cities throughout the country. So when it came to looking at longevity, I wanted to give you that as a little bit of a background. There's 3 options that we looked at as it relates to how you could do this. There's multiple ways, obviously, even with longevity, that you could put this together. So there's 3 different options that we put out there. Option 1 would make adjustments, in essence, every couple of years. And so you'll see after you completed year 1, you would see $150 per year increase. And then starting year 2, it goes in 2-year increments, and you would get an extra $120 for each 2-year increment that you were with the city. And so you can see there at the end, if you had been with the city 24 plus years, it would cap out at $1,590 extra dollars per year added to your check. One of the other options, and you'll notice, by the way, 1,316, this is full-time permanent employees only. This is civilian employees, doesn't apply to collective bargaining units. Option 2 was to do this in 5-year increments. You'll see an increased cost here, but I'll just mention that the total cost is adjustable. We can make the numbers fit in terms of the years for if the commission had a particular dollar amount total that they wanted to implement, we could make that work. And then if you go to option number 3, this would be an adjustment that would be a specific amount per year. This one would start at the end of the first year of service. It would be $150, and it would be an additional $150 per year for each year that you were with the city moving forward from there. If you were to compare this with some of the surrounding cities, I'll just mention City of Alamo, it's $100 a year. City of Edinburgh is $182 per year. City of FAR is $150 per year. So some of our peers are in that ballpark right there that you see on option 3. But we just wanted to put those out there, especially because you can see the dollar amount that's attached to doing something in this range right here. It's a very large number. And so again, this is a tool in the tool chest to be used to retain the employees. There are other ways to do this, but we wanted to put this out there in front of you so that you could see that. We'll wrap that up just with a reminder, if you'll go to the last slide there, of that 7-year plan. A couple of things I'll point out. The first one is the top row, COLAs. You'll see for year 4, 5, 6, and 7, 3%. Just a reminder, if we get behind on those COLAs, it gets us behind our peers. Our peers are all doing comp studies. There's at least 2 Valley cities doing comp studies right now. Many cities are doing COLAs. We're seeing around the country a lot of cities that are doing large COLAs this year. Also, I'll note under salary study, you'll see begin there under year 7, somewhere in the 25, 26 or the 26, 27 range. We'll need to start the process of doing the comp study again just to see how we're keeping up or not keeping up with our peers. And so we've got that scheduled to make sure that we don't forget the importance of doing that. We can't wait 10 plus years to do that. We've got to be pretty quick. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Let me see if I read this right. Option 3, longevity. Okay, so that's the years, okay? Then you have a monthly, which is your pay, whatever, yearly, that's how much it is. And there's in year 1, there's 158 employees that are in that calculation?
Yes, and I appreciate you asking that question. On all 3 of those charts where it says number of EEs, that stands for employees, that's how many employees right now happen to fall in that category. So this is what it would cost if we were to implement it right now.
Okay.
Obviously, that number fluctuates year to year. It would stay fairly close to that. If you had a lot of employees decide to stick around, the number would increase, which you would say, well, it's costing us more, and at the flip side is now we're keeping employees longer. If you had a lot of employees leave, that number would decrease because you would shift back up to the lower numbers.
Okay, let me ask you, so the total of the 1316 is non-police, non-fire, and what else? That's it?
Full-time employees.
These are all full-time employees?
Right.
Repeat that.
But
Okay.
yes, not fire police, because they already have longevity.
Exactly, okay. Okay, so let's just say we would be successful, and instead of being at 18, whatever, or 15%, what was that? Sorry. Around 15%, right? Yeah, 15.3. If we were successful in bringing it down to 10 by implementing this, and we have a cost here, how much savings would that be to the city?
In terms of the cost of hiring new employees, I don't remember that number off the top of my
I
head.
don't have the number, the cost per hire off the top of my head. I would need to get that later.
Well, it'd be good, that would be good, because obviously you would compensate some of what you're funding, okay, that's one. And then 2, is there somewhere where there's a concentration of maybe we're losing people in certain departments or certain industries, or is there a concentration there?
So generally, about half of the employees that we lose have been with us for less than a year. So there is a large number of employees that are leaving us really early on. And so those are the ones that we were, between the 1 and 5 years that we were trying to
And that's
target.
and that's what your private industry is seeing. That first year and second year, there's just a constant move. Okay. So we're seeing that in the city. Even though the city has benefits, even though the city has, you know, longevity, and even if it has
Doesn't have
growth.
But
Well,
there's
that's
plenty of things
growth.
that the city offers. One of the things we've seen, and some of this is generational, some of it isn't. But we've seen in the industry, for instance, you know, we've got transit drivers, heavy equipment operators. When you see the oil field booming, we start losing drivers because they get a better offer. They have no benefits there, but they get an extra couple of dollars an hour. So we're constantly working with the city manager, with departments to try to make modifications to see how we can hang on to those employees. We've also worked hard on our new employee orientation and the things that we do in the first year to try to retain employees, find out what's happening with them and what made them decide to leave and go elsewhere. So there's a lot that goes into that, but we are seeing what's happening statewide and nationally as well.
If I see that both in 2018 and 2020, sick leave, what's the beef with that? I mean, why, do you have any idea?
Just the number of sick days that city employees have is less than what we see with surrounding cities. It's just, the number's just lower.
What's the average of surrounding cities?
Usually around 0.94.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3-4 days a year, something like that.
Are we calculating turnover per department? I think that was something that Tony had asked.
We do per department. I didn't bring that.
Okay.
Didn't have a
Put it in the
slide.
Friday packet,
Yeah.
something so we
Yeah,
can see.
be good to see.
So we can just see the overall.
Yeah, on the sick leave, that was a deliberate decision on our part not to recommend it. That was not the commission saying no. Honestly, management, I'll just speak for myself, I didn't feel comfortable giving more sick leave. I feel that 12 days a year is plenty, in that it should be used in catastrophic situations. You know, I've always had a philosophy that if somebody misses 12 days a year and there is no catastrophe, there's a problem. And so I just wanted to point that out, that we did not recommend it.
It accumulates, right? I mean,
Yeah, it
12,
accumulates.
24.
Continues to-
Yeah, okay.
Do we allow the sharing of those sick leaves?
Yes.
We do,
We
right?
have very specific guidelines, but yes, it's a one-time thing
Yeah.
for catastrophic.
Exactly, and that's good to point out, because
Yeah.
people will see that and they'll recognize it if they have sick leave, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very good. I'm glad we do. I just didn't know.
Any other comment or question?
No, I think it's good that we revisit it because I think us four were here when the initial kind of 7-year plan was started. And we fortunately have committed to sticking to it. And so it's good that, you know, to some extent, it's a refresher or kind of bring y'all up to speed. I believe the plan, this 7-year plan, will work well, and I think it's going to benefit the employees. To your point, Tony, I think it's important that you understand where the attrition is occurring, at what tenure it's occurring, right? Because that'll give you an idea of maybe culture within a certain part of the institution versus just assuming it's the whole. In 21, and maybe a little bit of this year, when there's 2 jobs available for every person looking for a job, you know, when there's options, it's very difficult to retain. We see that at the bank. The attrition rate at the bank is upwards of 30%. And we see that also. The majority are within 1 year. We've had a tremendous amount under 3 months. And we see a lot of them are teller, frontline, things of that nature, right? And so it's difficult to assess, and we try to focus on obviously how to retain them because there's a lot of money spent in training. But then there's a lot of focus also on how to retain the much more difficult to replace skill sets or levels as well. So.
Did we do a one-time payment to employees?
We did last year.
Last year, right?
This year, actually, you did it this summer.
So, is that up there anywhere, or?
No.
Yeah, it's here. In 21-22, salary adjustment was yes. It was a one-time, wasn't it?
Salary
Well, the
adjustment?
21-22 reflects when we implemented the compensation study, and we're capturing the COLAs, and I guess we can add another section for one-time adjustments. It
Yeah, I
just wasn't in our
apologize.
initial
Yeah, the
part,
one-time
but-
adjustment should be on there as well. So there's been two over here.
Depending on how much that is, sometimes that helps with inflation or to meet higher cost of living expenses, right? So because those costs seem to be fluctuating, right, daily. But like we were talking about, the 3%, we put that into motion, but yeah, that's something that is already in the plan.
Right.
But these one times, that helps too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I think we'll revisit this. I'm pro-employee, people that know me know that. But any one of those options starts pushing our increase in budget to 5%, and that's just not a number that I like considering, increasing in budget. So maybe we look at where we are at mid-year, and this can be one of the main issues to try to address next fiscal year.
Are you speaking just about the longevity aspect?
Right, the longevity aspect, right. Because the middle one, option 2 is about $1 million.
Well, I'm glad that we're showing, that we're honoring our commitments and our plans. It shows the strength and shows that, we're consistent. And if we bring something out, not only to our community, but to our employees and our staff, which is the most important element of us, of our cities, in order to carry and make sure that we run such a beautiful, great city, we have to have that, and you need to know that we fulfill those commitments that we promised. And I'm very happy that we're doing that, and we have a plan. And we have to adjust it every once in a while, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But the commitment is there.
I'll echo that. I mean, both at the staff level to come up with this plan, and really, when we started it, we had a great amount of detail of what was going on. A lot of detail. And 2 is for the commission to stick to it. You should be very proud of that. Between the compensation study and the increases in the benefits, we've done great strides. We've had 2 catastrophes, speaking of catastrophe. One was the COVID, and the other is what we're dealing with now. I mean, and both of them are very tough on employees of all kinds,
Yep.
private and public. So had that second one not happened, what we're dealing with now, I think that we'd be in a lot better shape. But we're just having to deal with it. And so I applaud all of you.
Yeah, and I know that also we do all these events, and events are beautiful and it's great, and it brings so many people to our city, and then our residents enjoy it. But it takes a toll on staff and all the volunteers and all the people that you have to put up gates, and we have to have traffic control, and we have to bus, and we have to do all kinds of things for all these events to occur, and we rely on our staff to do that, and that's why some of these floating vacations and things like that works. But sometimes they're unsung, or you don't see all the what happens in the background in order to have these events, and it's due to the 1,300 employees here and the fire and the police that are there, and to have such a beautiful event and safe event. So, knock on wood, let's keep that going. Appreciate it.
I think,
Okay.
having, just a last comment, I
Yes,
guess.
sir.
The, having the right amount of employees too is important. Sometimes when you're understaffed, your staff is, having to work more. And I think I made a comment or two about the planning and engineering, the amount of projects they're looking at, not only internal projects from the city, but from contractors, from developers that are coming and having their plans reviewed and all that. We want to make sure we have sufficient employees in those departments. And so just, those are my 2 cents. We want to make sure we have sufficient staff in those departments, especially other departments as well that might be short-staffed. But I guess if they didn't ask for more, what can we do, right? But it also is up to management to look at and say, well, what's the throughput that we're having, and is it sufficient, and those kind of things. So, anyways, if we're comfortable with it, then we're comfortable with it. But if not, we need to look at it.
What Commissioner is saying is that that's where we get the most complaints on permits and everything. So who was in charge of that, or engineering, and how are they doing? How are we doing with that? Because that's actually, who do I call? I call usually Michelle, and that's one of the biggest issues all the time. Permitting, they're taking too long, or I don't know whether we need to train or retrain or do something, because one of the issues we always have is they ask for ABC, then you do it, and then they want C, D, E, F, and that type of stuff. What are the issues we have with that?
Well, I think we've got a pretty good team right now. We do get a surge of.
Can we make it better?
projects. We can always make it better. We're always
There you go.
making it better. But I think that, we do have some young staff there, and while there has been really good about reinforcing our customer service, I think that we want to make sure that we put ourselves in the shoes of the developer. That the interest clock is ticking, that every day means, material shortages are getting worse, and yes, they have codes that they have to enforce, but we need to be thinking from their perspective. And so,
We've had a little bit of turnover in those 2 departments lately.
yeah. And engineers we've lost several to the private sector in the last year. So, yeah.
But that's pretty much kind of the issue we get. But the word out there is that a lot of those doing a real good job.
I agree. But that is the biggest issue that we get. But it is improving. But we do have a young staff, and we still need to put a few more positions there. Yeah.
We've got grants. We wanted to give you an update on basically not so much what grants does, but the workload they've got. There was a question that we had a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to have Yvette go through it quickly and see if you have any questions. There's a tremendous amount of work that comes out of that department, and we get a lot of money from the outside into that department.
But we can get more.
It's not on the list. It's not on the agenda.
I know, but,
You wouldn't want to break the law, would you?
Oh, yeah, it's actually on this one. That's just so you can call it.
Oh,
But it's on here.
very good.
Not the posted edition. Post. And, posted.
All right, Yvette, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you for having me. Just wanted to give you sort of an update on where we are with COVID money and without COVID money. So if you start with your packet, the first one that you will see was what has been awarded to the city over the last few years. I'm sorry. And so we did the last 3 years essentially. About 4 years ago, we merged the Departments of Community Development and Grants Administration. And so this essentially takes us through that history. So the first one, you can see that we received a lot of money, particularly for engineering. You'll see our emergency management would happen to be most of the COVID dollars, and then the state and local resource planning programs. The page that follows that just details exactly details exactly what is comprised of each of these grants. And you will see that we listed on the front page, it's really like the first top 6 departments which receive funding, and then the next page includes all of it. So you'll see Convention Center, Emergency Management, Engineering, Fire, KMB, Library, the Planning Department, Police Department, Public Works, and then the money that we get for immigration. So it's either that we get from immigration related to testing services, or immigration related just to providing food, shelter, and helping disinfection. And then the last one is the amount of money that we got, the $20.9 million for the last 2 fiscal years, which has been in the budget that you have reviewed. After that, we made a chart just to show what we did excluding COVID money. You will see that it's really averaged out over Convention Center, Engineering, Fire, Police, and Immigration. Those were our top grant getters, I guess, excluding COVID money. The page behind that, again, is just supplemental information related to what is within the grant. If you have any questions on any particular department on what comprises those, then I'd be more than happy to answer that as well. The next page just shows exactly what we needed to do in order to provide the city's portion for these grants. So you will see that we have received in the last 3 years, let me make sure, it should be 149 million. 149 million over the last 3 years. And if you go to page 6, you will see that the city's share of that amount has been 49 million. So essentially, we put in 25% of every grant that we get. So we have been awarded 149 and basically put in $50 million. The page that follows that is exactly what we do. This is all budgets included. This would include the grant money and the matching sources that come from each of these grants. And so we essentially report on $198 million over the last 3 years. I'm sorry, $198 million over the last 3 years. There's a chart again that shows basically where that money is listed and coming from. To show where it's going, we kind of took them into smaller micro categories, and we looked at what was public service, what was public facilities, infrastructure, administration, emergency management, again, the 2 immigration types, and the state and local resources program. You will see that that large bar for infrastructure actually represents the money that is being awarded for the Bridge Department for Ansalduas. Next page, again, once again, will show you where each of those fall per fiscal year. On page 11, you will be able to see how many grants we have written for each department. And the page after that shows that we've actually submitted over the last few years about 90 grants, and we've received about half of that. So we've been successful in getting grants out of every other application that we submit.
How many have you done?
So we did 91 and we received 46 for those total awards. The next page is a really quick summary of what we do. It just talks about the fact that we create an application, we release it, the board, our community development board reviews it. It goes before the development corporation board once we have a recommendation, and then obviously that recommendation comes before you. We generate contracts, we expend money, we monitor those expenditures, and then we report back with a year-end reconciliation. The last section actually includes our community development projects. So under community development and HUD funding, we have essentially 5 allocations that have come over the last 3 years. You will see that we have CDBG CV, which is the coronavirus money, Home ARPA, which came from the the COVID money as well, and then our ESG program, which is specifically for homelessness. And so our average on CDBG is usually about $1.7 million on an annual basis. Under home, it's usually around $550,000. And ESG over the last 2 years has averaged about $147,000. Now, ESG is a relatively fickle allocation with us. We don't always receive it. In fact, before last fiscal year, it's been 13 years since we had received the Emergency Solutions Grant. Again, it's specifically for homelessness, and so we often don't have enough numbers in order to garner this grant. But these are the community development funds that we receive under HUD. And you may remember that our department was tasked with looking at homeless prevention and rental assistance over the last 2 fiscal years since essentially COVID started. So that final page that you should have within your presentation indicates that the Development Corporation had awarded $800,000 in order to look at homeless prevention. We were able to assist 53 households with mortgage and utilities and 91 households with rental assistance and utilities. And so we expended most of the money. We actually expended $740,000 out of the $800,000 that was awarded. We did get 2 allocations from the state under the Texas Emergency Rental Assistance Program and the Texas Emergency Mortgage Assistance Program. And essentially we did 150 households between the 2 programs. Those were fully expended, and that money came on behalf of the state. And we ran that program completely within the office. We had an employee who did all the case management, data entry into the homeless management information system, and maintained the case files on this funding.
That was better than the county.
So certainly if you have any questions, be happy to answer.
Anybody?
Well, we just got this, overview. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What else do we have, Roy?
That's it, sir.
Okay, there being no further business, this workshop is adjourned.